Metaphors are everywhere. When you're feeling blue and a little down, someone hopefully cheers you up. And whether you're on the left or the right side of the political spectrum, it's often good to look ahead and leave the past behind, because over a long time you will reap a high reward. It's pretty cool if someone has a hot hand, but we shouldn't divide the world into black and white, because there's usually a gray area in between. Some problems are pretty hard to solve because of fuzzy concepts. Okay, I think you get it, but using words in other contexts feels really intuitive to us, and it's also found across different languages and cultures with the same connections between concepts. And why is that? There are a few non-mutually exclusive hypotheses explaining this. One is that we form these associations with repeated exposure. So, for example, if you walk a long distance, you also need many units of time for that. Another hypothesis is that the brain uses the same areas and neurons for different things if the concept is in some way similar. So it's saving neurons by overloading them. Just like we save symbols by overloading, for example, a minus with the meaning of a connector or indicating a parenthesis or new bullet point, just depending on the context. And there is some evidence for that, because when people are made to think about a morally wrong action, they feel more disgust afterward, and some of the same brain areas are active when people experience moral and physical disgust. In this video, I'm going to present two papers that investigate the connections between tastes and emotions, like being salty, sour, bitter, or sweet, and they focus on emotions in relationships, so jealousy and love. The first paper asks whether an emotion can change our taste, and the second one whether experiencing a taste can change our emotions. In this study, the researchers first established the association between taste words and emotions with a questionnaire that asked, if X could be a taste, what would it be? The results were that sweet and love are as much associated with one another as jealousy and sourness, and jealousy and bitterness. Now the team wanted to know how feeling these emotions changes your sense of the associated tastes. And to exclude any biases of the participants of the study, they first recruited a bunch of unknowing students, and then randomly made 1/3 of them feel more love, another third more jealous, and the last third not different at all. They did this by letting the groups either write about a time they were in love, felt romantic jealousy, or about a landmark in Singapore where the study was based. The last treatment group was to control for any biases and as a comparison group. A survey they then filled out confirmed that this essay writing actually changed their emotions in the moment. The participants then either ate some gummy that was rated before as being equally sweet and sour, or some chocolate that is equally sweet and bitter. They then rated how sweet and sour and so on these sweets were. The paper unfortunately doesn't contain any figures, but I just made my own. Please note that I didn't go through the effort of adding error bars in Excel. The results are that the love group rated the candy as sweeter than the other two groups, but the jealousy group didn't rate them as more sour or bitter. Interestingly, all groups liked the candy equally much, and the results hold up if you also control for the fact that thinking about love may make you happier overall. Next, the authors asked, where in the body does this upregulation of sweetness happen? Is it that the taste receptors in the tongue are more sensitive? Or is the brain integrating the same information differently? Therefore, they conducted another experiment where a different set of students went through the same procedure of writing about a time in love, romantic jealousy, and now the third group wrote about a time they were happy. And then instead of candy, they rated the taste of distilled water. This answers the question whether it's the receptors in the brain, because in distilled water there are no molecules that could even bind to the sweetness receptors. So if the love group still rates it as sweeter than the other groups, we know that it must be happening in the brain. And the results show that this is the case. Because again, the love treatment rated the water as sweeter than the other groups, They also rated it tasting more sour and bitter than the other groups, but that difference is not statistically significant, so it could easily be due to chance. So now we know that love is sweet, but is sweetness also love? The second paper now asks whether tasting sweet stuff also sweetens how you think about relationships and potential partners. Therefore, the researchers made again some students fill out a survey about their current or hypothetical relationship and partner while they were eating a snack or having a drink. Some were given sweet Oreos and others salty and sour chips. And in the second study, some were given Fanta and the other group bland distilled water. The results are grouped by whether the participant was at the time in a relationship or not. Because of those who were single, the sweet groups did rate their hypothetical relationships and partners as more positive than the control groups. But the non-singles didn't rate their current relationship any different, no matter what they were currently tasting. So those were real or hypothetical current partners. But is that association also therefore real potential partners? Another set of participants were given the same snacks and drinks, but now they were given a generic profile of someone they were told they could meet after the study. And indeed, when they were given a survey, those who consumed the sweet things wanted to meet the person more and rated their potential relationships as better than the participants in the control group. So with these results, we can evaluate the hypotheses again about where that specific association comes from. One hypothesis is that babies associate the sweet milk they get with mother love, and then in adulthood that gets just carried over to romantic love. The problem with that is that it cannot explain why we say, and maybe also taste, sweet victory or sweet revenge. The other hypothesis says that the same brain circuits are used for both things depending on the context. There is evidence for that because the same brain regions are used for sweet taste and feelings of love. But why is it love and sweet and not, for example, love and umami? At this point, we don't know and we would need more research. Other questions are how universal are which metaphors? For example, we know that different languages or cultures define colors differently. So when in English someone is feeling blue or is green of envy, what do you say in Japanese or Russian or Himba? And can we identify something similar in non-human animals? That might give us a clue to how this has evolved. So next time you go on a date, maybe consider taking them to the candy shop and let them lick the lollipop. Hope this wasn't too spicy.